Forever is the strangest thing. It's shorter than you think. No thing. Longing is the music of our sphere. The gift of life is never more or less. It starts at any time you like and ends in just a wink. Pass me the light, baby.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Examiner. So I'm Victoria O'Brien, and joining us this evening on this live stream is Gilda Kirkpatrick. Now, many of you will know Gilda. She is a very well-known Iranian-born New Zealander who moved to New Zealand when she was 16. She is a successful entrepreneur and author of the Astarons Space series of children's books. She's also the creative partner at Hello, the Conversation Company, which is a marketing and communications agency based in Auckland. So Gilda has previously revealed some of her personal experiences with the Iranian morality police while living in Iran. She's quite active on Twitter. So welcome and thanks for joining us, Gilda.
Oh, pleasure to be here, Victoria. It's so nice to be conversing with another immigrant who has had a very successful career, and all respects to you. So I'm looking forward to this conversation because we are very the same age, and we came here exactly at 16, both of us. And
Yes.
you know, you came from Singapore and you built your life here. So I came from Iran and did the same thing. And it's amazing how 30-something years later, our views are colliding and perhaps going in the same direction as immigrants. I don't know. Let's find out.
Yes. So, yes, I have to agree. So we are very much of the same mind, which is why it's interesting to talk to you, for you to bring out your experiences with what is currently going on in Iran. Now, there's a lot of coverage about it only very recently. The protests have been going on for 2 weeks for non-stop. I think it was 15 days now, non-stop in Iran. And I think the mainstream media coverage has been really lagging behind. A lot of focus has been on the start of those protests versus what it has actually evolved into, which is much, much bigger. And it could, in the end, signal a full-on regime change. So let's start with the genesis of what's happened. So for those who don't know, the Iranian Revolution happened in 1978, 79?
79,
Yeah.
Yep, about a year.
So that would have been a huge change. I mean, we've seen photographs of life in Iran before then, and it was. What do you remember of that? If anything?
Iran was like any other country that really didn't have any major issues in terms of, security, unrest. People had relatively good lifestyle. We had experienced 54 years of kingdom dynasty of Pahlavi. And during that 54 years, the country was revolutionized in terms of, industrialization, in terms of literacy, sort of modernizing the country, working on the infrastructure. That happened with Reza Shah, who was the first king who wasn't actually from a king family. He came in through a coup, and he took the country through a sort of Western modernization, which was really amazing. He achieved a lot of great work. Yes, he had slightly sort of a strong view, but I suppose sometimes if you're trying to shake a foundation that has been based on oppression and stuff like that, you need to have a sort of a view to wake people up and give them something to look forward to. And I think he did that for Iran. Everything that we have, that we are proud of prior to the Islamization of Iran, the Arab overtake of Persian Empire, we really are proud because he helped us to kind of get back to that proud origins that we had. And then he was replaced by his son, Troy. It's a very big political story. And his son kind of did the same thing during his reign. He gave women the right of vote and, many other stuff that was very forward thinking at the time, and eliminating literacy in Iran, and then comes along. So I was from that era, I was born in 1973. So I remember my childhood, I was from Tehran. It was a very beautiful city. We used to travel to Europe. To me, it didn't really look any different to, any other European country. Of course, the architecture was different and the culture was a bit different. But in terms of, how women were treated and men were treated, and in terms of how people lived, I never thought about it as a kid. And then revolution happened. There were talks about it for a long time, but it literally almost happened as an expression overnight. And overnight, it just changed. Like, when I say this, like, people often think I'm exaggerating, and they don't actually realize that I'm not. It really changed overnight. And the only good thing that came out of COVID is that now I can share that experience with some people, because of COVID, our lifestyle in New Zealand changed overnight for 2 years. We went from being just the most beautiful, open country, healthy, happy, everybody walking barefoot on the sand, and, to a country that got all of a sudden interested in politics and got locked in, and everybody got, rage and, people had questions. People were afraid to ask questions. People were just following what the establishment was telling them, the government was telling them. So in that way, I've found that a lot of people are now noticing what I'm trying to say when I say things can change overnight. Like, don't overestimate your freedom, and always hold it very precious and closely, and be aware of it and cherish it, and protect it, because it can go overnight.
Absolutely. We've definitely seen that, this conscious attitude now, conscious recognition that freedom is something that is very precious and we cannot take it for granted, as we are on the cusp of losing more freedoms online as well. But to return to what we were saying, can you give us some experiences, personal experiences maybe, of what happened as you were growing up? Did you have any? I seem to recall you writing at one stage, recounting a personal experience with the morality police.
I have countless experience.
Okay.
Anybody that has lived in Iran, I guarantee you, they've had countless experiences with a morality police, unless they've been extremely adherent to the Islamic dress code. Other than that, for no reason, it is. When I was growing up, it was really bad. Like, this generation have it. They used to have it a few years like less dramatic than we had it growing up as teenagers in Iran, because we were also at the time going through a war with Iraq. So everything was based on, what show a strand of hair, and our young people are getting killed in front lines, and so everything. So we all had to shut up, because we also have a sense of national pride. Iranians are very proud people of their culture, and we are, we love each other as, like, fellow human beings. Iranians are very, sort of together people, if that makes any sense. And Iran is built up of different ethnicities. So we've got Kurdish people there, we've got Baluch there, we've got Arabs. It's quite a mixture of people, and we all have stuck together and endured what's happened to us, because we are loving people and we have respect for each other. But when I was growing up, it was really bad. So for no reason, if even like a guard took a fancy to you and just wanted to chat you up, they could pull you aside. You didn't have to have a hijab issue. They could pull you aside. What are you doing here? Why are you going to that shop? Like, they would question you, and then kind of like, as a young person, you can always tell if somebody is looking at you weird, or,
Of course.
But none of us could even say a word, because if it did, they'll put us in the car, take us to jail, and then it would take weeks to deal with the situation, or days to deal with the situation. It would put the parents under pressure. They already had lots of issues because of war and the lack of, supplies, and all the issues that they had themselves. So we tried very hard to be very obedient. But in our little way, I think we all have fought what was happening to us. And I feel really sorry for this generation that they didn't even experience the, pre-Islamic Republic, and they were born after and during the war. And, they've just seen nothing but tyranny and suppression, and that is, we are talking about 80 million people. We get all upset and cry about, I mean, I'm a big animal lover and supporter, but like animals in shelter, or, we see a beaten up dog or horse or donkey or whatever, we get all emotional, we shed a few tears. We're talking about 80 million people being held prisoner and oppressed for literally 40 years. And they put up with it. And
amazing, isn't it?
And not that, because they are respectful people. And another layer that adds to it is because of religion. Because Iran is theocracy, is Islamic dictatorship. So it doesn't matter what religion you have, what your ideologies, what your thoughts are, who you are as a human being, you are bound to this ideology, this religion that literally tells you what to do from morning to night. In terms of like a good, so wake up this hour, pray, eat this at this time, wake up, quit work at this hour, pray, do this and pray and pray. So, when you go to toilet, you have to obey these rules. When you're having a shower, you have to obey. So you whole of your life as a child, so I grew up, with a family that weren't religious, but, it kind of brainwashes all these rules that gives you. And once I was talking to a imam that visited, and it was a very interesting conversation. And I was like, so what, these rules, why is it so like, and I was a kid, I was like in early high school, and he told me, oh, because people don't have to think. When everything is laid out for them, then they just obey the rules and they don't think. And that really, he was saying it as a good thing, like you're taking pressure off you, so you don't have to like weigh things out or get stressed about life. You just follow the rules and you'll end up in heaven and your life will be perfect. But that kind of, as a kid, didn't really sit well with me. And I was like, that is just the most awful thing I've ever heard in my life. What about freedom of thought? What about just being a human being? People get all righteous about, racehorses. I'm not for it. I love animals, but I'm like, how can you not see? How can you be defending something like that oppresses, and then in the other hand be like, oh, poor horse didn't go for a run. I don't understand how people cannot be fair and see all sides. It's about freedom for all creatures, freedom of expressing yourself, having emotions, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, sure, let it be. But, of course, if there's a psycho killer going out there and there's a rapist and a, pedophile, there are exceptions to the rule. But in reality, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, if I'm thinking about, in the morning when I wake up, if I'm thinking about sunflowers and, I don't know, corn, it shouldn't be anybody's business. But why is it so pushed on you to wake up and think about this and then follow it by this and this and all these rules? And then that's the mental part. And then you go to the society and you're observed and you're watched and you're told, if you're not like that, we're going to put you in jail and we cut you off from society. You won't have the right to study, to work, to mingle like right people, like normal people of the society. I found it very offensive. And it's not because it's hurting anybody. It's just, it's a tool of control.
Well, that's a completely authoritarian regime. It means that everybody is an automaton. Everybody is watched, I'm sure, highly surveilled.
Yes.
This sort of society appeals to some people. Some people would say that, then everybody is safe because you have nothing to hide. You're being watched all the time. But then at the same time, you might as well be a robot. Why exist? Because you cannot be yourself. And that's where all the freedom comes in. So now that we've talked about where it was and then what has happened in the last 40 years. And I mean, obviously this is not new. Like you've said, anybody who's lived in Iran has an experience with the morality police. So there have been women killed during the last, many women killed and persecuted in the last 40 years. Why now, do you think? Why suddenly, why this young woman, 22 years old? I'm going to mispronounce her name, so please tell me how it should be pronounced, as Masa Amini. And why now? because it's never been, as you say, everybody's been really obedient. Everybody has been very respectful. It's sort of part of the culture. Why now?
Well, to be fair, in saying that, it's just a general, observation of my people. But there have been a lot of uprisings in the past 40 years. There have been some big ones, and girls have been killed, shot in the head. Their images were spread all over the media, and then in 2019 there was this big uprising that got shut off basically by the COVID situation, and that news took over the world. So this time there are so many theories about why this time, but in life you go through times, and one of those times something happens. This movement is not headed by any political party, any opposition. It was a grassroots movement. It started with people. It was genuine, because it's like might be a poor example, but it's like a bottle of champagne. You shake it long enough, that cork is gonna pop.
Yes.
People have been under so much pressure under the Islamic dictatorship, the Islamic regime. They've killed so many people. They've thrown boys off the roof for being gay. They've raped and killed, trans people. They have killed and raped girls. They beheaded this gay guy, like, by his family. His family beheaded him. It was last year. The stuff that happens there is just not one makes it to news in thousands. But I think people being under so much pressure with this COVID, and also economical issues, this money. Iran is one of the wealthiest countries in Middle East, and they've got our people shouldn't be struggling the way they are. But unfortunately, our government is taking all the natural resources, all the money, selling literally everything to countries that you probably know, and then they take the money and they strengthen their tentacles all over the world, in North Africa, in Middle East, all the unease in Middle East, all these issues in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in all over the place. It's supported by Iranian government's funding, and this is what our people are saying. In one way, I see that people are like, oh, Palestine. Yes, I was in school. I think one of the first songs that I was singing was about freedom of Palestinians. But Palestinian people, yes, they're in my heart, and I feel for them every day, because I know what my government has done to them.
Indeed.
They've done it to us too. So in many ways, my views aren't conventional in terms of going with the trend of what's cool to say, or who to back up, or fight for everybody. I love my people, and I think they come first. And I like to fight for them first, because they've given with their blood to fight for everybody else in North Africa and the rest of Middle East.
Indeed.
So somebody has to stand up. I'm not saying I'm a figure that I'm standing up. It's just a conversation between you and me. I'm just an immigrant who left Iran because of the brutality that I faced as a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, as a 14-year-old. Like, who puts a 15, 16-year-old girl in jail for a month or two because they were at a birthday party? Nothing was happening. Like, it wasn't like nothing was happening. It was a birthday party. They just decided to come in and then keep you in jail and boot you in the head and decide that, oh, okay, we're gonna let you go if we check whether your virginity is intact. So, they go and check you out and
Outrageous.
these experiences, like, these are not something that ever leaves you. These people, these young people in Iran who are dying in the streets today, they will get rid of this dictatorship and regime, but these memories will never leave them. These are generations that have been mentally affected and will be scarred for life. And no price, no money, nothing can fix that. Nothing can fix that. I can tell you, I'm 49 years old. I live in the most beautiful country in the world, and I'm not fixed because of what I endured during those 16 years 8 years that I had under the Islamic regime. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. And, this revolution isn't really, there are people in the West that are very privileged. They're very idealistic and they love to heal the world and everything in it. However, I'm a feminist. I stand up for women. I'm known to be that. But they're trying to say, "Oh, this is a feminist movement." It's like, no, this is a movement.
Much bigger. This is much bigger than that.
It's a movement for survival of human beings. Yes, the catalyst was another girl.
Correct.
Who coped and got killed by this regime. But it isn't. You look in the streets, it's not about hijab. These people are fighting for their lives and their freedom, their humanity. And yes, there are women, but it doesn't limit it to feminism movement. Yes, a very small part of it is about feminism movement, but Iranian women are so far from having any right to even have the luxury to talk about feminism. They're literally getting killed for being women, and our boys are getting killed just for being men, but have thoughts because they thought about something, because they were creative, they created music, because they painted something that wasn't in the right rule book by the government. So this is way beyond feminism. That's a small part of it. So if you're a big feminist out there in the West, think how much it's important for us. We women, we back each other. We fight for each other. But what we all stand for is a fraction of what those people in the street are talking about. Or
so what we have, we have a video of the start of it. That was the initial protests when they started. I think Elliot can bring, who's doing our technical stuff. He can bring that up. And this, as you say, it started off with people burning their headscarves and cutting their hair. So here we go. Now this particular video that's currently being shown, this is the latest video. I think it happened overnight, and this shows how widespread it is. It's people just taking to the streets in Iran. If Elliot can find the original, the one from September 15th, that would be quite good. As you say, what's happening now is that it's gone much bigger. Students are also being killed. I think it was the Sharif University. There's a massive persecution of the students, and Sharif University, for those who don't know, is one of the top universities in Iran, turning out a lot of talented people. And students are being persecuted. Yeah, there you go. Actually being chased by the police, the mullah police. Yeah, so that's the university students. There's also a very large collection of images and short videos showing the people who have been beaten or shot in Iran over these protests. It's quite a large cross section and quite shocking.
دم به دنیا نیست اینجا خبری از دلخوشی ها نیست اینجا هر روز پر از حادثه جگرسوز
یا امام حسین آقاش مرده چی رو زنگ بزنی تو اول پیم کود ما چو پیشه پیم کود که برین داره چیزو خطر
رکب گوشانه ها با تیر زدن با تیر زدنش کشتنش با تیر کشتنش
Since the start of the protest, I think 92 people have been killed. This is just in the last 2 weeks. As you can see, it's a huge cross section.
I think it's about 140 something. That's the watch. That's the latest news that has been out from the Iranian Human Rights Watch. So it's a dire situation, and I get this a lot from people, like, which kind of like I understand, but it also at the same time it's important for me to clarify it, that I get messages from Muslims from different countries. A lot of them are supporting the Iranian fight and what women are going through, and but I get this a lot. Oh, can you please say that this is not about Islam and it's about just having rights to do what you want and be who you are. And it's all understandable that it is not about Islam. Iranian people aren't anti anything. They just want the basic freedom to live their lives. And just last week, the regime attacked a whole bunch of people. I think it was in Sanhandaj or Baluchistan. They just shot a whole bunch of 40-something people during the lunch prayer, I think it was, or during namaz, prayers. So to people who are worried that this is going to showcase Islam in a bad light, I like to tell you that I understand where you're coming from, but people who are getting killed are Muslims, and the only reason they are getting killed is because it is justifiable under the Islamic religion. Our government are the height of Islamic enforcement, so they use Islam to justify everything that they've done for the past 40 years. All these terrorist groups you see here and there, Hezbollah, Hamas, up in Somalia, in Yemen, everywhere, they are justifiable under the Islamic law. My people are getting killed every day, and their blood is justified under the Islamic law. So this isn't about you or your religion. This is about 80 million people wanting to be free. I mean, you have the luxury of practicing your religion. Yes, Iranian women can wear hijab or not, but that's not a choice that they have. We are fighting. Well, I'm sitting here on my butt. I'm really not doing anything, but they are fighting to have their choice. But you shouldn't get upset because they're chanting in the street, down with Islamic regime, down with this and that. It's got nothing to do with you. Don't worry about, defending your religion. Your religion is safe with you. You can harbor it in your heart and you can practice it every day for sure. It's your choice. You're lucky enough to have a choice. But these people are getting killed because they don't have the luxury that you have. So maybe understand that sometimes we need to step away from our own interests and agenda in order to be supportive and understanding of somebody else's battle and the life lost over that battle. It's got nothing to do with belittling or putting down a religion or not respecting Islam. I've had messages that, oh, burning hijab is very disrespectful to Islam, etc., etc. Well, our government under the Islamic rules have been disrespecting our people and generations after generations. So please be mindful of that. This is no war against Islam. It is got to do with our government in our own country and our battles. It's got nothing to do with the bigger world or criticism of it. I mean, don't also forget that, Christianity went through very dark ages. They burned people. They just labeled them. They used any excuse to get rid of people who didn't really sit with their politics. And,
Absolutely.
Catholic Church is, they crucify people. They beheaded people. They hang people. They hanged women, and they went through oppression of women for a very long time. And in Western world today, as feminists, people are still fighting to gain their rights as women. And these are all leftovers from these religious stages that we are dealing with. So let's be open to that also. It is not about belittling anybody who puts a scarf on. It's literally not about you. It's about a bunch of people who are dying because of religion, it's because of control. Because like the moment they see a woman does something, it happened like in Iranian history. It happened during Reza Shah, the father of the last king of Iran. He went for sort of freedom for women, and Shah did the same thing, and all the clerics and the imams, they all of a sudden got onto the bad side of the regime of the kingdom, and they didn't want that. They didn't want women to have right of vote or to have literacy or to have freedom of choosing whether to wear a head cover or not wear a head cover. So we especially the younger generation who haven't been through these experiences, like to simplify a lot of things. But unfortunately, things aren't that simple. Things aren't just like, oh, you're with women or you're not with women, you're with Islam or you're not with Islam. Things are extremely complicated. It's like a tree. Tree doesn't have one stick in the ground that is called the root. Tree has so many little roots that are everywhere. A tree, way beyond its size has covered the ground. So what you see isn't simple. That tree isn't just a tree, a stick into the ground. It covers meters away from itself, meters down and meters wide. And do understand that everything isn't about you. Sometimes we just need to understand that and let people express. I was very, am I talking too much? Sorry.
No, not at all. Keep going.
I was very disappointed the other day. There was a protest here at OTL Square. And, I've been vocal about this thing for very many years, especially on Twitter. That's basically I use Instagram as my family album, basically. And I use Twitter to express my, passions and anger or happiness or whatever it is that I feel.
Political views, many political views.
Yeah. And, for years I've been discussing this hijab situation and Iran situation. And, even, the last time that I got really people got really pissed off with me was when the Christchurch mosque happened. And that was one of the most hideous crimes that can happen. Imagine these people coming to New Zealand for getting away from that shit that is happening over there, and then doing their peaceful, prayers in their own mosque, and then coming and getting killed. Like, there is nothing to justify that. That is just act of horror. However, at the same week, I was very preoccupied with what's happening in Iran, and an Iranian girl got prosecuted, and also her lawyer. Like, they got 36 years in jail for a bad hijab or removing their hijab in court. Something as stupid as 36 years of somebody's life. And I turn on the media and I'm like,
there was a lot of coverage of our Prime Minister.
Our Prime Minister is at the, this gathering in the mosque. Oh, she's wearing a mask. That's very respectful, because in every culture, you go to Vatican, you don't wear like sexy little clothes. You cover your arms. They don't let you in even, you have to have long sleeve or a scarf around you. You go to synagogue, you dress modestly. You go to mosque, you go to Hagia Sophia Mosque in Turkey or any mosque anywhere. You are to, respect somebody's code. It's like going to somebody's house and they don't want you to wear shoe because that's just their culture. That's just, they want their house to be clean, or it's their habit, and you respect that. You take your shoe off. People don't want people to drink alcohol in their house or use drugs. People don't do that. You're respectful when you enter to somebody's house, and when you enter to a holy place like a mosque, like a synagogue, like a Buddhist temple, like a church, you respect their values, or you just don't go in. If you don't respect their values, just bugger off, don't go in. But if you do go in, you respect their values. I understand that. But then I'm like, okay, Prime Minister is wearing her scarf in the street on New Zealand publicly owned land on a podium that has got nothing to do with a holy ground or mosque. And to me, it was really weird that a secular leader of New Zealand, a country that is not religious, it's a secular country. A lot of us who came here to get away from religion, we came here for that, is just wearing this scarf everywhere. Meanwhile, at the same day, the same week, you can go and check the, dates. These women have been jailed for 36 years for not wearing it properly. How is that even? And she keeps changing this hijab like it's an accessory. It's like, I wear a blue one today and a black one the other day, and I'll do. How disrespectful is that? I get your respect for the religion, but please do not, misrepresent or do not use this symbol of oppression that is for many, many Muslim women across the world. Today we are watching what's happening in Afghanistan, with the Taliban and what's going on. They have uprising. They've had people killed at their universities, and You know, what's happening there is just heartbreaking. And these women are in the streets, and there are no men who are, you know, assisting them. At least in Iran, there are men, you know, fighting and getting killed for it. Over there, it's just, you know, this cultural misogyny thing that comes with, you know, certain rules that are, you know, in Islam. You know, you know, the men are holding back. Why are you holding back? You can see these women are being killed and treated like not even as free as a sheep. Sheep doesn't have to wear hijab. You know, animals are like getting treated better than human beings.
I think there are recent, in the last day or so, videos as well of Pakistani women demonstrating in the streets for in fact what you were talking about before, the funneling of Iranian money into Pakistan. And they're also protesting in solidarity basically with Iran.
You know, I have a lot of friends here. I have friends from different Muslim countries. I have, you know, whether it's in Middle East or in Africa, and, you know, some of these practices, you know, we should address them. You can't get away with, you know, just saying, oh, it's a religion, we're just going to get away with it and do it because that's our rule. It just isn't, you know, at this time and age. I think as women and as human beings, as men, to sit there and just look at it as one of the many things is very wrong. See the bigger picture. You know, if somebody is poisoning something, then, you know, be honest about it and do something about it. Nobody ever wants to suppress anybody in any way. But why is it that it's okay for one group to suppress, but you know, in the Western society, all these activists and actors and all that, they come online and they talk about, you know, what's happening, and, you know, they don't want to say it like it's a dirty word. No, say it. Why is it happening? Our government solely and purely is allowed to do this based on the religious, you know, Sharia, or their, you know, religious book. That this killing of, you know, like this boy, the gay boy that got killed, head chopped off by his family. Why? Because he was gay. And under Islam, that was okay. They didn't even get jail time. You know, how is that okay? You know, Islam is religion of peace. Sure, practice it in your home, but please do not kill people for it.
I find it very naive and very strange when I see LGBTQ activists on the street holding up signs saying, you know, we stand with Islam, because knowing what Sharia law actually supports, it's completely opposite to what.
It's beyond me. I'm not. I mean, everybody feels completely happy to go against Catholic Church and their conversion therapies and all that. People are happy to voice their opinions on that, or, you know, or against anybody who's against gay marriage, right? You know, some Christians are against it. You know, I personally am pro every, like, be whoever you want, as long as you don't hurt other people, that's totally fine. Yeah. But, you know, I don't get it. So you feel happy to go against Catholic Church and say whatever you feel like about some big chunk of, you know, world's religion, and that's okay. But you'll feel like it's weird to say, why is this other religion killing women and gays and guys and trans and everybody else? Why is this other religion stepping over everybody's right? I mean, how is that even, you know, like, if you have an epsilon of, like, you know, logic, you would see how ridiculously, you know,
hypocritical. Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you.
His views are, and then they're trying to, like, all this bunch of people like, oh, no, don't open your mouth, and you're, upsetting some people. Well, you're upsetting a lot of people too. All I'm saying is that it should be justice and fairness for all kind of people, regardless of race and religion, and gender. So why am I being weird and you're not? Why can't you stand with me when I'm saying, enough is enough to what's happening to women under a certain religion rule? But I'm a bad person because I'm saying that? Like, you haven't even experienced it. You have no idea. I had to memorize the whole bloody book as a child to know every story, and so sometimes it's good that we respect people that been through things, and when they say their opinion and their views, maybe take a minute before you jump in and think about where they're coming from. Maybe just don't be lazy and don't just go on Google and read something very quickly and feel knowledgeable. Maybe just read the history. The same with can you say it?
Colonialization.
There you go. Sorry, sometimes I get them. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. It's okay to say, oh, Brits went and changed everybody's language, and they, took their Christian religion and took our values away and did this and that. And then if I say, oh, Islamification of Iran by the Arabs, where it took, over 2 centuries, 633 to something 80 years ago. It started then. It took 2 centuries. And then if you study, like, our history, it is, if not the most, powerful move to colonize a place, then what is it? Why don't you see it as that? What is the holdup? That's that's what I don't know.
Sorry, I've got a problem with my sound.
Okay, I can hear a phone or something.
It's gone away. That's good. Sorry. No, what I wanted to bring up was also the Imam of Peace, Imam Tafidi. Yes. He gave quite a revealing interview very recently, where he said how he was asked, about the wearing of hijab, and he said no. He says he views all women, all people, as people first.
Yes.
And he says, if I respect you as a human being, I don't tell you what to wear. And I thought that was very good, because I think that boils it right down to what you're saying, which is you need to respect people as people, first of all, and recognize that there are fundamental rights, freedom, and etc. You need to respect them as an individual, and having all the rights and freedoms of an individual. So you don't tell them what to wear. That's just for starters. And you don't control them.
As I said, Imam Tafiri is a good example of, there are a lot of people who are trying to modernize Islam. What people don't realize is that Islam is relatively new religion in comparison to Christianity and Judaism. So Judaism and Christianity went through this modernization, and it took them thousands of years to get there. And as you can see, the perspective of church has changed towards, women and a whole bunch of other things, and, homosexuality and all that. So they've kind of evolved, and they have, because religion came out in times where, we didn't really have sort of voting system or political systems in place. It was very old, and it was a way of governing, and keeping tab and controlling people. So as religion kind of got away in terms of Judaism and Christianity because they were older. In Western community, in Western society, Islam is still pretty much younger than all of those, and it's still in times of changing. And it has changed in many Muslim countries. Women do have rights. Nobody's abused. People live. They have good lifestyle standards. There is choice, but unfortunately, we must admit that people do take advantage of things, and I think Iranian government have taken advantage of the power of religion. I'm sure if there were any other religion, they would do exactly the same thing, but they've taken advantage of the power of religion to hold on to their control for the past 40 years and create, unrest in the Middle East just to basically hold their position right, and it could have been any other religion, but it happens to be Islam. So let's be, understanding of that. It's nothing to do with Islam. It is how it's been used. It's like you having a knife in your house and you can make the most beautiful family meal that will bond everybody together, and it will bring the most pleasure of life to everybody who's sharing that meal, or a fire where you can cook on it and it brings everybody together and it's a joy and it will warm you up and it adds to your life and prolongs your life. Or you burn somebody with that fire, or you cut somebody's throat with that knife. It is how you use it. At the end of the day, these are just rules. How we use those rules in the modern society like we have today, thousands of years later, with the evolution that we've had in terms of our education and science and math and understanding of the world and other fellow human beings and living in this global scenario.
So I think you've touched on something that's quite important there, because especially with socialism, we see the supplanting of the state. The supplanting of religion and family with the state. Like you say, it's just another tool for control. Yep. And in the end, it's the authority and the trend towards authoritarian control. And whether it is, like you say, religion was used at one stage because there was no other sort of national control. So it is one form of government. But then when it takes it over, now we've got the state trying to take over, and it's trying to take over family and religion. So I think it is our responsibility to be aware that these things are happening, and we're always going to have governments or people in power who want to control. I mean, what is the saying? Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it is something that we need to recognize as people, that as much as people in power might start off with the best intentions, it is far too easy for them to be ceded, for too much of our own freedoms to be ceded to them, and we lose the control and the freedoms that we have so far taken for granted.
Absolutely.
I think just as a final touch, because we're closing up on the hour, I saw very recently, in fact today on Twitter, part of the loss of identity as women. There was a school, I'm not sure if it's in New Zealand or not, a year 11 girl went to unisex toilets at school. And then she realized as she was getting undressed in the cubicle that there were boys in the next cubicle with their phones filming her. And she was so upset that, of course, she ran home and she cried. And she's not going back to school. And I mean, these are the sorts of things that happen as we try to be a little too inclusive, as we try to sort of try to accommodate everyone. I think there are values that we need to cherish, identities that we need to protect. And the danger is that we allow too many things to happen just because we think, oh, it might be, I don't know, the right thing maybe, even though we feel uncomfortable about it. But it's something that, like you say, it could be a struggle that we have to evolve through. It's a very, very difficult one.
I think it really relies on people being extremely honest with themselves, and really question what's beyond all this. One of my biggest concern is like what's happening in New Zealand and what's been happening in New Zealand, and what's kind of changed under the COVID Act, and that really concerns of freedom. All these still things that are coming in and nobody's aware of it, and Kiwis are very laid back. I think it's time for people to really start questioning, why are these things happening? Why are we not questioning what's happening? At the end of the day, we are paying our public servants in the house to look after our interest. But New Zealand is at the bottom of the list in terms of our politicians' interests. I'm not talking about one party. I'm talking, across. I don't think we have strong enough oppositions. Isn't it concerning that a lot of political parties are agreeing together at the same time? Doesn't it concern me?
Yeah. Where they're all singing from the same song sheet, right?
What is the point of voting anymore? We might as well have a place like Iran, just choose your beloved, celebrity leader and just let them lead and you just follow. And then look where you end up.
Absolute power corrupts, absolutely right. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much.
It's been a real eye-opener, Gilda. Thank you so much.
All right. Good luck.
Good night. Thank you. Bye. Bye.